The swamp fight finally took place at Extreme Rules between Braun Strowman and Bray Wyatt, and it was so freaking cool. So much to talk about, so many things to theorize, but there was also lots of stuff you may have missed. But before we get to that, I've got a little sneaky backstage look at the swamp fight for you guys. You can clearly see an image here of where they started. You can see Wyatt's rocking chair in the middle of the road. There's the sign on the tree next to it as well. Kind of interesting to have a look around and see like people working on the set. You can see where the cameras are and things like that. Always interesting. Another one right here. You can clearly see it's like a golf course kind of setup. You can see where the campfire spot took place. You can see the logs are laying there. You can see that big jetty thing where Bray tried to hit Braun with a shovel. You can see the pond / the swamp. This is where they film the swamp fight, people. It's really cool to get that backstage look. But this was one of the first things we saw, and it was a wild boar. Now, straight away, you think, well, what's so important about a wild boar? Well, when you remember that Bray Wyatt a few months ago tweeted out this, saying it was all, now let's have a good look at you. This picture is of a boar mask. Was the fact there was a boar present during the swamp fight a little hint, maybe as to what's to come for the monster Braun Strowman? We actually saw Bray Wyatt emerge from the lake after seemingly both men died, and Bray was the Fiend. We never saw Braun Strowman emerge, so are we going to see him become the monster that Bray Wyatt always wanted him to be? Is he going to be wearing a boar mask? It's definitely possible. The psychology was set up for that perfectly. Bray told Braun that he had to kill the monster he had become. And that was what the whole story was about. This wasn't a wrestling match. This wasn't a championship match. There was no pinfall, no submission. It was a fight. And Bray had to kill the monster of Braun Strowman for Braun to be the monster Bray wanted him to be. Maybe he comes back with a mask. Now, we did see the Black Sheep Braun Strowman actually attack himself, kind of. And that was kind of strange, obviously, with a shovel hitting him, Braun in the head. We also saw other sheep masks during Bray holding Braun hostage. Obviously, the one on the left, obviously representative of Eric Rowan's. But I don't think we've ever seen the one on the right before. The one with all the blood around the mouth. Thought that was kind of interesting to see. Maybe that's a future mask that we'll see at some point. But the one on the left, when you look at the full image, there's a jar of freaking eyeballs next to it. Now, you can only actually see one eyeball, but it's just enough to know it's an eyeball. Then we actually saw an eye for an eye match tonight at Extreme Rules. And what's most interesting is you see Seth Rollins say every single time he talks about doing what he does to Rey Mysterio, he calls it a sacrifice to the greater good. Now, we theorized before that maybe that could be the Fiend. That the Fiend changed Seth and now he's the Messiah for Bray Wyatt. That's very possible. This removing of Rey Mysterio's eye could be to add an eyeball to Bray Wyatt's weird collection of eyeballs. I have no idea what that story could entail, but it's very likely. Why else would he have a jar of freaking eyeballs other than that? It literally depicts something we've seen currently in WWE storylines. And the fact that Seth Rollins actually looked very conflicted after actually the eye of Rey Mysterio was so-called out of its socket, maybe it's because he doesn't want to do it, but he's being forced to by a power he doesn't understand or know about. That could be what's going on here. I think it's weird, but it's likely. Now, we also got the big reveal of Alexa Bliss portraying Sister Abigail. Now, I think it's the other way round. I think what we saw was Sister Abigail portraying Alexa Bliss. I think she took the image of Alexa Bliss to lure Braun Strowman in. I know a lot of you are excited for this. This is obviously the first time we've actually got a full depiction of Abigail on WWE TV, and I understand the hype. I'm hyped that we've seen this because it means anyone potentially in the future could portray Abigail. They could have their own Abigail. Braun trusted Alexa. We got that moment of bliss segment on SmackDown a few weeks ago to remind us of their friendship. This makes sense it doesn't make sense why Alexa would be Abigail permanently. I think she was Abigail tonight, but she may not be on Friday, and she may not be ever again. Now, what is interesting is this person who brought the snake in. I don't know who this was or who it was meant to represent, but it kind of does represent the person we saw of Abigail. Could this be Abigail carrying in the snake to attack Braun Strowman? Now, the fact he got bit by the snake could then explain what happened with Alexa. Maybe it was a snake-bitten hallucination. That's very possible. I think, again, it's very likely. Again, another thing we saw tonight was this sign. Abandon all hope, ye who enters here. Now, again, this is nothing new. We've seen this many, many times. We see it on the door of the Firefly Funhouse. It says, abandon all hope, ye who exit here. And that's what makes me think. If the Funhouse says exit here, and the sign at the swamp says enter here, where's the Firefly Funhouse? Because the Firefly Funhouse surely has to be somewhere in that swamp compound. Because if you enter, that's fine, but the other side of that sign should be exit. So was this all part of the Firefly Funhouse? Is this all in that black void we see on the Funhouse? Match with John Cena, that's very likely. It was dark, obviously, it was night, so maybe that's a way to explain it. The Wyatt Swamp is actually in hell, which would also explain why Bray Wyatt's now a freaking Dracula. I love this. I absolutely love this. If you missed this, this was obviously reference to a lot of horror stuff in the past. Black and white, really, really good. Bray Wyatt basically hyping up the swamp match by mocking WWE creative team, by basically saying how the karaoke segment was the worst thing ever. Well, it was Ramblin' Rabbit that told us that. But Ramblin' Rabbit, we all know, represents the critics of Bray Wyatt, so therefore he's a critic of WWE. We had a man set on fire in the swamp fight. I have no idea who he is. I assume he is just some kind of stunt double, maybe some kind of independent wrestler. I actually have no idea, so if you know who he is, let me know in the comment section down below. But I think him and the other people we saw on Bray's side kept attacking Braun were obviously representatives of Bray Wyatt's cult, because, you know, he's cult leader Bray. I think they also depicted Rowan and Harper a lot of times in this. Now, we actually saw a fight in a swamp as well, where Bray and Braun obviously finished the match, was actually in the swamp. But kind of interesting enough is obviously the water and the story being told by these two men. And of course, we know Bray had a lot of creative control over this match, so it's possible that he took a lot of references from the Lake of Reincarnation. Of course, we saw the boat. It sort of went off one way and then came back the other way without Bray in it. So I think there's another sort of twist there that, you know, hell, the void in the funhouse and things, maybe that's possible. But I kind of like the idea that maybe they've taken something from Matt Hardy's Lake of Reincarnation, and that's why now we've seen the Fiend return. And it would also explain why we see a possible Braun Strowman change. I think one of the big things to remember from this is that jar of eyeballs. I think the fact there's one that's visible, if this wasn't visible, you'd just think it's pickled eggs. But the fact there's one eyeball clearly visible, and it's clearly an eyeball, on a night where we had an eye for an eye match, where the opponent had to rip their opponent's eye out, I don't know. We've always theorised that Seth was changed by the Fiend, and I think it's something to keep an eye out on. Get it? There was also this girl when Braun was down, and I'd love to know who she is meant to be, because she was almost laughing at Braun, the fact Braun was down. Is this maybe is this Abigail? Like, is this like a representation of Abigail many years ago? I don't know. It's very possible. 100% though. The talking point from the Firefly Funhouse swamp match, whatever the hell it was, honestly, it's the Fiend's back. The Fiend is back. And at SummerSlam, I strongly expect us to get Braun versus the Fiend. I expect the Fiend to now be bringing carnage and chaos. I expect Bray Wyatt to go undefeated for a long time. I want him to be champion again. I want to see the Firefly Funhouse back regularly on TV. I want all of this, and it looks like we're getting it. And now with that connection possibly to Seth growing even more, it's super, super interesting. Now, I did do initial videos about the Swamp match and the Eye for an Eye match. If you want to check them out, make sure you do. They are up on the channel. Of course, if you are new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. We're actually on 26,200 and something subscribers at this point, so it's really appreciated to continue to see that growth. Of course, consider turning on notifications. This video will not get a notification, but it's fine because you guys can hopefully share it, and that way people will find it, and it shows a lot of support to the channel, especially when these videos do not get notifications sent out. Of course, like the video. It's the easiest way to support the video, so please do that as well. I will see you, as always, next time. Boo!